If you're not new to the channel, you know that a couple years back I did an old Yu-Gi-Oh tutorial video, or a how to do Yu-Gi-Oh, Yu-Gi lessons, I guess if you can call it. So one thing I'd like to do is that I'd like to go back over those and kind of do a little bit of refreshers on old stuff and shed some light on some new stuff. Think of this as a redo of my old videos and also me trying to probably expunge the past, which is something I probably should have done on a regular, but I didn't get the time to do that until now, so consider this my late but not so late Yu-Gi lesson 1.5 HD remake, whatever you'd like to call it. Also, I'm going to be having a friend of mine helping me out with this. He goes by the name of Supreme Burger. I'm not going to say his real name here, because one thing when it's Gold Mario and he literally says his name in the video, so unless my friend Supreme Burger decides to let me, give me the okay to, yeah, it's alright to use my real name in videos. For now, I will only refer to him as either Supreme Burger or Burger. So, in this case, I guess, welcome aboard. If you haven't seen my old Yu-Gi-Oh lessons, I would say go watch those. But, considering I'm about to do an entire whole revamp of the rules with, Project Ignis, as my little go-to for lessons and whatnot, then I guess I shouldn't really do that. Plus, back then, my decks, well, at least my deck that was used in those videos, wasn't exactly a put-together. It was sort of like, I threw a bunch of the cards that I had together and was like, yep, this is what I'm going to use. This is perfect. It was like everything. In fact, I think I didn't even, I don't know, I had card sleeves back then, but I had like one of those paper mats that you get in like the starter decks. Granted, my Yu-Gi-Oh repertoire has expanded since then. I got my own mat, I got more card sleeves, more deck boxes, more decks at this point. Yeah, but no, back then I was, oh man, I was like just getting back into the game, didn't really have a deck. That's kind of how I met Golden Mario. He gave me a deck to kind of start out with, and then again, kind of like a throwing together a little hodgepodge. You know, I'm getting sidetracked. Let's just get right into the damn thing. So, for starters, I'm going to break down each type of card in the game. Just for those of you who are watching who know the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And, you know, this is a little bit of a refresher. Well, first off, thank you for watching my video instead of a professional Yu-Gi YouTuber's video. I appreciate it. But know that when I do, you know, the monster, spell and traps, monster specifically, I'm going to break down every single type of monster in one video. I'm not going to split them up, you know, I'm not going to go, oh, this is effect monsters, this is normal and effect monsters, that's one video, this is ritual monsters, that's another video, there's synchro, and then, yeah, no, I'm just gonna break it all down and just do it all in one video, but I will split the videos up, monsters, spells, traps, and whatnot. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's get into the monster cards. So first we're going to start off with normal monsters. Now for this example, I'm going to be using the Dark Magician monster card. So one thing to note about normal monsters is that they have like this yellow-ish sort of color to them. On each monster card you'll ever get, they'll have a designated level. They'll have sort of a description of the card. In Dark Magician's case, it says Spellcaster Normal. You're going to get into other things like some are going to say tuners, some are going to say machines, some wars. The Spellcaster side, that's just what he is. You know, he's a Dark Magician, he's a Spellcaster. Now, because he's a normal monster, normally in that space under where it says Spellcaster Normal, that's a little bit of a flavor text. It just basically describes the monster. When we get into other cards, cards that have effects, you're not going to be seeing flavor text, you're going to be seeing more of an effect there. And trust me, effects in Yu-Gi-Oh! Can get really, and I mean really hectic. Next up, in the top right corner, you'll see that it's there's a little purple token thing. That is the monster's attribute. There are many different attributes in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! There's dark, like Dark Magician here is. There's light. Oops, I just hit my mic. There's light. There's divine, fire, earth, water, wind. There's so many. But in this case, we're just only going to focus on Dark Magician just as an example. Now, at the bottom right of the card, you're going to see the ATK and DEF. Those are attack and defense points. 2,500 attack and 2,100 defense. Each monster has a different attack and defense point. Dark Magician's just is 2,500 attack and 2,100 defense. Alright, with that out of the way, that's normal monsters. Moving on. Alright, next we have effect monsters. Effect monsters are going to have this orange-ish color tint to them. As you can see, I'm using the card FA Sonic Meister, level 4 monster, an effect monster. And whereas with Dark Magician, it said Spellcaster Normal, in this case, Sonic Meister is a machine monster, so instead of Spellcaster, it's machine type. And it's also an effect, not a normal. Now, whereas with Dark Magician, it had a little flavor text, basically describing him, saying the ultimate wizard in terms of attack and defense. Here with FA Sonic Meister, he has an effect, gains attack equal to its level times 300, cannot be destroyed by battle with an opponent's monster whose original level or rank is lower than this card's level. Each time an FA spell, trap card, or effect is activated, you can increase this card's level by 1. If this card is level 7 or higher, it can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. Now, with effect monsters, basically it's all about reading the card and being able to interpret what the card means. Even the slightest thing as a comma next to before the word and or after the word and could throw off the entire meaning of the card's effect. It's all a matter of interpretation, and in the case if you're confused, you can always reach out to other people for help understanding the card. So back to effect monsters. They have effects. All you have to do is read the effects. Sometimes effects may require you to sacrifice life points. Sometimes they may require you to discard another card or do certain things to other cards on the field to activate their effects, or cards in your hand or on your opponent's side of the field. But the point is that their effect monsters and normal and effect monsters are kept in your main deck. More on that in either later in this video, but if I don't get to it, I'll probably bring it up in another video. You know what? That's probably what I'm going to do. When I get to actually dueling, that's when I'll probably get to where you put each type of monster. Alright, next up we have ritual monsters. Now, ritual monsters have this dark blue-ish sort of color to them. Ritual monsters can only be special summoned. First off, they can only be special summoned. Unlike effect and normal monsters, which can be normal summoned or set, ritual monsters can only be special summoned using a ritual spell card. Now, there are some ritual cards ritual monster cards in the game that kind of have a bit of a workaround where you don't have to use a ritual spell card, but those are very few and far between. Konami has a habit of not trying to do that, but sometimes they still do it anyway. But here I'm going to be using Blackluster Soldier as an example, because sometimes ritual monsters can be normal monsters in the sense of they don't have effects, really, but others, well, most ritual monsters will have effects. So I'm using Blackluster Soldier as an example. So on the right, I have just a regular Blackluster Soldier, and technically speaking, it has an effect saying you can ritual summon this card with Blackluster Ritual. Technically is an effect, because it's not talking about the card, it's giving an effect, but for all intents and purposes, it really is just a normal ritual monster, I guess, because it doesn't really do anything else special. It just says, hey, here's how you summon it, and that's really it. Blackluster Soldier Super Soldier, which is the one on the left, says you can ritual summon this card with Super Soldier Ritual. This card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard. Inflict damage to your opponent equal to its attack in the graveyard. If this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, or if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to your graveyard, you can special summon one Gaia the Fierce Knight monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. You can only special summon Blackluster Soldier Super Soldier once per turn. Now, the thing is with ritual summoning monsters, just like how I said monsters have that level and those are the stars on the card, in order to ritual summon a ritual monster, you would have to tribute monsters to the ritual that equal or that are greater than or equal to the level of the ritual monster. So in the case of Blackluster, of both of these Blackluster soldiers, since they're both level 8, it kind of takes the same thing. In order for me to ritual summon them, I would have to activate the proper ritual spell card and have to tribute monsters whose levels combined total equal 8 or more. Then after that, I can special summon them without having to do anything else. So that's ritual monsters. Let's move on. Alright, now we're going to be tackling fusion monsters. Now, fusion monsters go into the extra deck. I will elaborate on this later, but fusion monsters go in the extra deck. They are this purple colored card. As you can see with all monsters, it has its attribute at the top right corner, attack and defense at the bottom right corner. For this example, I'm going to be using Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. Now, for fusion monsters, it's interesting because sometimes they require a fusion spell card, whether that be Polymerization, Super Polymerization, and Destruction Swordsman Fusion, Miracle Fusion, whatever. The card will designatedly say that you can fusion summon using this card or whatnot, but that is really how you fusion summon, is using a fusion spell card. Now, when I get into spell cards, I will explicitly tell you that there's no real, designated fusion card. It's just a matter of reading and understanding, hey, this is cards used for fusion summoning and whatnot. But anyways, we're focusing on monsters, so I'll get to that later. So, Buster Blader, Dragon Destroyer Swordsman, in order to be fusion summoned, it has the material needed in the first sentence after, warrior, fusion, whatever. So, to fusion summon Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman, you need one Buster Blader. And in card effects, when it has the name of the card in quotations, it means that specific card. So, in this case, it would have to be a monster whose exact name is Buster Blader. Can't have anything else in the name or else it doesn't work. So it has to be specifically a card named Buster Blader. That's it. Can't have anything else in its name. Can't be Buster Blader, the whatever. No, it has to just be Blader. +1 dragon type monster, so any dragon, it doesn't matter. Blue eyes, red eyes, odd eyes, doesn't matter. Buster Blader +1 dragon monster. Now, early Yu-Gi-Oh! I guess a little history lesson. Early Yu-Gi-Oh! Most fusion monsters didn't really have an effect. It just gave the material needed, and that was just it. The exception being cards like the fusion cards in the not Buster Blader, the Dark Magician archetype. There was Thousand Dragon. I believe that had an effect. Yeah, I think it did. But early Yu-Gi-Oh! Besides those, really no other fusion card had much of an effect. I mean, if you watch the anime, you know that they BS'd effects out of their ass everywhere. It was, it was whatever. But in the actual game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Early game, fusion monsters really didn't have effects, except for the ones I named, and maybe a few others, but besides that, not really. But more often than not, when you see a fusion monster, expect some effect coming your way, or some effect you're sending your opponent's way. So in the case of Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman, as you see, must be fusion summoned. What that means is it has to be fusion summoned from the extra deck to be summoned, period. If it goes to the graveyard, it can't be special summoned back or revived using cards like Monster Reborn or any form of revival cards that allows you to special summon cards out of the graveyard. Now, if you have cards to put it back in your extra deck to fusion summon it again, that's different, but besides that, once it goes from either the extra deck to the graveyard or the field to the graveyard, it can't be summoned back out of the graveyard. It has to go back to the extra deck in order to be fusion summoned again, and that goes into a whole different thing. Cannot attack directly, gains 1000 attack and defense for each dragon monster your opponent controls or is in their graveyard. Change all dragon monsters your opponent controls to defense position. Also, dragon monsters in your opponent's possession cannot activate their effects. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. I'll get into the whole piercing and whatnot. I'll get into that when I go over actually dueling, but yeah, that's just basically the effect of a fusion monster. Fusion monsters nowadays, basically every fusion monster nowadays has an effect, so be on the lookout for that. Fusion monsters have to be fusion summoned unless a card specifies otherwise. But yeah, that's fusion monsters, and we're moving on. Now we move on to Synchro Monsters. Now, Synchro Monsters are these white cards. Yeah, they're these cards with some white backgrounds. The thing is with Synchro Monsters, sort of like with Ritual Monsters, just like how Ritual Monsters, when ritual summoning, you need to tribute monsters for a special summon up to their level or more. So with Blackluster Soldier, like I said, I have to tribute monsters whose combined level total 8 or more. Synchro monsters are sort of like that, but the levels have to be exactly the level. Well, the levels to combined total has to exactly meet the level of the Synchro monster. So with with Blackluster Soldier, if I had a level 4 monster and a level 5 monster, I could use those for a ritual summon because 4 plus 5 is 9, and 9 is greater than 8, so it would still work out. Same as if I had 2 level 4 monsters, just tribute both of them, that's 4 plus 4, which is 8, that's exactly the level of BLS, I'm good to go. But with Synchro Monsters, it's similar, but not too similar. So I have a level 7 FA Dawn Dragster and a level 8 Buster Dragon. So Dawn Dragster is a level 7 Synchro Monster. Now the thing is, in order to Synchro Summon, unless a card explicitly states otherwise, you're going to hear me say that a lot. So unless a card explicitly states otherwise, Synchro Monsters require what is known as a Tuner Monster. Now, I'm going to show a tuner monster on the screen right now, or maybe a couple. I don't know. I think, knowing me, it's probably going to be either Dragon Buster Destruction Sword or, FA Auto Navigator. But you'll see that where it says like machine, synchro effect or machine effect, whatever. You're going to see it right there. It also says the word tuner. And that's all it really is. It's just tuner monsters are specifically really going to be used for synchro summoning. Now, we got that out of the way, FA Dawn Dragster is a level 4 Synchro Monster, which means it requires a tuner, and as you can see, it says a non-tuner, basically with kind of like how Fusion Monsters had their material, the material listed used for the Fusion Summon. Synchro Monsters have the material listed for a Synchro Summon. Now, sometimes they might list, just like how Buster Blader Dragon Destroyer Swordsman listed, it specifically needs Buster Blader as one of the material. Sometimes there might be some Synchro Monsters that require a specific card for that specific Synchro Summoning. But in the case that of the two monsters that I'm showing on screen, neither of them have that, so you're going to have to take my word for it. I don't know really any Synchro Monsters that require... Actually, no, I do know one, and that's Junk Warrior, but it requires Junk Synchron, which is one of its tuner monsters, but I won't get too much into that. I'm using the examples on screen. So like I said, Dawn Dragster, level 7, Synchro Monster, it requires 1 tuner plus 1 plus non-tuner monsters. So basically, when it has that 1 plus non-tuner monsters, it basically 1 or more. Just make sure that their level, all their levels together total exactly 7. So if I have FA Auto Navigator, which is a level 1 tuner monster, and I have 2 more monsters, or 1 or more monsters, just their levels together have to equal 7. So I could have Auto Nav, it's a level 1, a level 2 monster, and then a level 4 monster. 1 plus 2 plus 4 is 7, I can Synchro Summon Dawn Dragster. Or I could do it the easy way and just have Auto Navigator, which is a level 1, and a level 6 monster. Those two together, 1 plus 6 is 7, Dawn Dragster. Making things easy. But more often than not, you know, synchro monsters have an effect. I don't think there are any synchro monsters that don't have effects. If there are, and I, honest to God, do not know it, make fun of me in the comments. I relish the thought. But F.A. Dawn Dragster gains attack equal to its level times 300. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. Each time an FA or AFA spell or trap card or effect is activated, you can increase this card's level by 1 once per turn when your opponent activates a spell, trap card, or effect. Quick effect. I'll get into those when we get into actual dueling. You can reduce this card's level by 2, and if you do, negate the activation, and if you do that, destroy the card. Now, moving on to Buster Dragon, which is a level 8 synchro monster, so you would need either a level 1 and a level 7, which is kind of how the Buster Blader archetype goes. But I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole another thing entirely. But, you know, just like with F.A. Dawn Dragster as a level 7, when I synchro summon, you know, the combined total levels have to equal, in Buster Dragon's case, has to equal 8. Cannot be more, cannot be less. It has to be 8 on the dot. As you can see, Dragon Synchro effect, its material is 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters. Now, Buster Dragon came out when they decided to not simplify it, so that's why it says 1 or more. But basically, when it says 1 or more, that's the same as on Dawn Dragster. It has the 1 plus non-tuner. It's the same thing, just they wrote it differently. Buster Dragon's effect, all monsters your opponent controls become Dragon type. Once per turn, if you do not control a, quote, Buster Blader, so there's the name of the card, in quotes again. If you do not control a Buster Blader monster, you can target one, quote, Buster Blader, unquote, in your graveyard, special summon it. Once per turn during your opponent's turn, you can target one Buster Blader monster you control, equip it with a Destruction Sword monster from your graveyard. This is a quick effect. Again, I'll get into quick effects in the videos where I actually get into dueling, but for now, I'm just going to leave that alone. But, I mean, Buster Dragon, using an example as before, it has the monster's name in quotes, so it's that specific monster's name and nothing else. Same with Destruction Sword, you know, it has Destruction Sword in its name, you know, that's basically it. So yeah, that's Synchro Monsters. I don't think there's really anything else left to say. Moving on to the next type of monster. Now we move on to XYZ monsters, or XYZ monsters, depending on what you like to call it. Most of, I guess, the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom refers to them how they are in the anime, which is XZs, but you can call them XYZ, just know you're gonna get funny looks for that. But XYZ monsters are interesting because just like how every monster requires some form of, like, what's the word I'm looking for? God, I just had a major brain fart. It requires material. So sort of does XYZ monsters. So I'm going to be using Cyber Dragon Nova and Cyber Dragon Infinity because both of those do something very special. Well, both of them use the XYZ summoning condition of what is called overlaying. So Cyber Dragon Nova, you know, also, real quick, before I even go into Cyber Dragon Nova or Cyber Dragon Infinity, XYZ monsters don't have levels, they have ranks. I'll get into that in a second. But Cyber Dragon Nova's material are 2 level 5 machine monsters. So this is also another thing I can go into because certain monsters will require certain harder to summon monsters require certain conditions, like, again, with Cyber Dragon Nova, it requires 2 machine type monsters. So, in the case of, let's say, let me take, what's a level 5 monster I can name off the top of my head? Damn, I don't know any level 5 monsters off the top of my head. Whatever, one will come in, but take any level 5 monster. You know what, for argument's sake, let's just say if Dark Magician was a level 5 instead of a level 7, just for argument's sake. So I wouldn't be able to use Dark Magician for Cyber Dragon Nova because Dark Magician is a spellcaster, not a machine. So I wouldn't be able to use it to summon Cyber Dragon Nova or Cyber Dragon Infinity for that matter either. And Infinity is interesting because it requires 3 level 6 light machine monsters. So not only does it have the machine typing needed for like Cyber Dragon Nova, but these machine types also have to be a light attribute monster, just like how it itself is a light attribute monster. Now, going into XE summoning, like I said, two level 5 machine monsters. There's 2 machine type monsters in the Cyber Dragon archetype called Cyber Dragons, and Cyber Dragon is a level 5 machine monster. So if I had 2 Cyber Dragons on my field, I would basically stack one over the other, and then I would overlay them, and I would be able to summon Cyber Dragon Nova. Now they have to be level 5, just like with Synchro Summoning, how the levels have to be whatever the combined levels have to be the total, whatever. With XE Summoning, both monsters have to be the exact same level as the monster's rank. So Cyber Dragon Nova is a rank 5. Yes, XE's monsters don't use levels, and that's basically because, well, there are some cards that restrict levels and not ranks, and some that harm ranks and not levels. But that's basically why. I'm not going to get too into the nitty gritty of it, but that's basically that's the forte of it. So again, with Cyber Dragon Nova, I would take 2 level 5 machine monsters, stack them on top of each other, and then I would put Cyber Dragon Nova on top. Now the thing is, with XE's monsters, they need the material under them to activate certain effects. So Cyber Dragon Nova, once per turn, detach 1 material from this card. So again, overlay 2, I detach 1 and send it to the graveyard, so there's still 1 under it. Now once you XE summon, the material under it, the material under said XE's monster are no longer considered monsters on the field. Once a monster has been used for tribute, or I guess for overlay for an XE's monster, it's no longer on the field. It's considered material, or just active material for an XE's monster to use as they see fit. So like I said, with Cyber Dragon Nova, once per turn you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 Cyber Dragon in your graveyard, special summon that target. Once per turn, quick effect, again, more on that in another video, you can banish 1 Cyber Dragon from your hand or face up from your monster zone. This card gains 2,100 attack until the end of this turn. If this card in your possession is sent to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 machine fusion monster from your extra deck. Now moving on to Cyber Dragon Infinity, it's 3 level 6 light machine type monsters. So going back what I said, they have to not only be machine monsters like how Cyber Dragon Nova had said, but they also have to be light attribute, not dark, not divine, not fire, not water. They have to be light attribute specifically. No exceptions. It says once per turn you can also XE summon Cyber Dragon Infinity, so itself, by using Cyber Dragon Nova. Well, using Cyber Dragon Nova you control as the XE's material. So this is why I chose the Cyber Dragon Nova and Infinity for this specific reason. So with Nova, again, it's level 5, it's level, or rank 5, not level 5, Cyber Dragon Nova are 2 level 5s, and then you overlay it, but Infinity can be summoned off of Cyber Dragon Nova. So in the case of if I have 2 Cyber Dragons, who are both level 5 machine monsters, and I overlay those for Cyber Dragon Nova, I could then overlay Infinity with, overlay Nova with Infinity. So I would basically just get a free instead of doing the 3 level 6 machine type monsters, I could basically XC summon it off of Nova, and Nova now becomes part of Infinity's material, as well as the 2 level 5 machine type machine monsters I use for Nova. So the one thing to note about Xyz monsters, if you ever overlay an Xyz monster on another Xyz monster, the previous material that the previous Xyz monster has now transfer over to the new monster. So they don't go to the graveyard, they don't get banished, they don't go back to your hand or whatever, they don't get summoned to the field, they stay as material for the new monster's use. Now then, in fact, next sentence for Cyber Dragon Infinity, Xyz material attached to that monster also become Xyz material on this card. Now, and again, unless a card effect explicitly says otherwise, a good majority of the time, previous material become new material for the new Xyz monsters. Moving on, this card gains 200 attack for each Xyz material attached to it. Once per turn, you can target one face-up attack position monster on the field, attach it to this card as a face-up Xyz material. Once per turn during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated, you can detach one Xyz material from this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Now, when it says you can target one attack position monster and add it to this as Xyz material, basically, if a monster's in attack position, Infinity can target it, and it would pull that monster, and that monster now becomes part of the material. Sort of like how Nova and everything used for Nova became material as well. I believe that's everything on Xyz monsters. Xyz monsters can be used for fusion summoning, but I don't think it can be used. Or it definitely can be used for synchro summoning. It can't be used for synchro summoning, but I think it might be able to be used for. I'm not sure. I don't think it can be used for ritual summon. If it can, yay! If it can't, oh well. But yeah, I believe that's it. Moving on. Now we move on to the type of cards that single-handedly fuck the entirety of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, Links. Links fuck the entire game, but I'm not going to get into that here. In order to Link summon, well, actually, first off, Link monsters, and I guess I forgot to mention that, mention this for Xyz monsters. Xyz monsters are the black tinted cards as well. I'm pretty sure I probably put text up for that just in case. But anyways, Link monsters are this blue sort of hexagonal tech-looking pattern-ish card. Again, to basically differentiate them from ritual monsters, which are just a solid blue, dark blue. Link monsters are a blue, dark blue hexagonal pattern. Now, to Link summon monsters, it's basically sort of the same-ish on how you would synchro summon. Except it doesn't require tuners, so basically you can just, again, take Shining Star GT for example, 2 machine monsters, you basically would just take the 2 monsters and just send them to the graveyard and Link summon, and that's basically it. Link monsters, basically, they don't really, with Master Rule 5, they don't really have much of a purpose besides being an extra summoning condition and being able to, being able to also activate effects, but besides that, ever since Master Rule 4 stopped being a thing, they haven't really had much of a... they still have a presence in the game, yes, because there's still support for a lot of current archetypes, but besides that, there really is, nothing really special. They're more or less just effect monsters that are in the extra deck. There really is nothing else, I guess, for them. But anyways, so we have FA Shining Star GT. Again, it's a Link machine effect. That link that you see down in the bottom right. So Link monsters have attack, but they don't have defense. So for any card effect or anything that would force a monster into defense position would work on them because they don't have a defense. But that link down there means is basically how many cards have to be used for tribute. I don't really know a lot of Link monsters off the top of my head because I don't really use Links like that, but I do know that there are some where even though they give a certain criteria to summon, to Link summon, they still have a Link number that is higher than the criteria. So let's say there was a Link monster that, okay, well I guess I'll take Shining Star GT for instance, and instead of having it Link 2, it was Link 3, but it still had the 2 machine monsters. That means as a Link 3, out of the 3 monsters needed for the Link 3, 2 of them have to be machine monsters. So basically, consider the Link. Oh god, my voice cracked. Consider the Link down in the bottom right corner, the total monsters that have to be tributed for a Link summon, and the criteria is just the criteria needed. But moving on. Gains attack equal to the total levels of the FA monsters this card points to times 300. Neither player takes any battle damage from attacks involving this card. Each time a FA spell, trap card, or effect is activated, place 1 athlete counter on this card. When your opponent activates a monster effect, as a quick effect, you can remove 1 athlete counter from this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. You can only use this effect of FA Shining Star GT once per turn. Now, basically, I guess I can sort of go into counters. Now, there are counters for certain archetypes, because some archetypes use counters, but most likely they're going to be spell counters. I do know there's such thing as Bushido counters. You know, like with Shining Star GT, there are athlete counters. There's many different counters for different archetypes, and each counter does something different pertaining to that specific archetype. Basically, when it says put a counter on a card, it's basically, you know, just keep a numerical value on it. So again, when it says put an athlete counter, if I activate an FA spell or trap card, Shining Star GT gets 1 athlete counter. If I activate another one, that's 2 counters, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. But again, that's basically counters, and that's also basically links. Not all links do what Shining Star GT does. I mean, some do things for special summoning, some do things for drawing, some do things for burn damage and should never have seen the light of day. I'm getting off track. Moving on. Now we move on to the final type of cards, and one of the most versatile cards versatile type of card in the entirety of the card game. Pendulum monsters. Now, pendulum monsters are really weird, but in like a good way, kind of weird, hard to explain. Because any monster really can be a pendulum monster. I don't think, well, I mean, except for Lynx, and I don't think I've seen a ritual pendulum monster. But pendulum monsters are weird. So I decided to use the Odd Eyes archetype to help me out with this one, because I play Odd Eyes religiously. On your screen, well, I guess on the screen, I should have Odd Eyes Raging Dragon, Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon, Odd Eyes Winged Dragon, Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon, and Odd Eyes Venom Dragon. Now, the reason I chose these specifically, because as you notice, they are each of the type of cards that we have went over. The Odd Eyes Raging Dragon's an Xyz Pendulum, Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum's a normal pendulum, Odd Eyes Revolution is an effect pendulum, Odd Eyes Wing is a synchro pendulum, and Odd Eyes Venom is a fusion pendulum. Now, one thing I'm pretty sure stood out to you above everything else is that these pendulum monsters have those numbers like near the mid to lower half of the card itself. Those are the pendulum numbers. Now, back when Master Rule 3 was a thing, there was a separate spot on the field for pendulum monsters to basically be face up, where you could basically just use them. Now the pendulum zones are mixed in with the spell trap zones, but I'll get into that when I get into like discussing the field, dueling, and all that. But pendulum monsters have, not only do they have the benefits of being an actual monster, but they also have the benefit of sort of being a spell card. So you can either, well, when you use Pendulum Monsters, you can either put them in your Spell or Trap zone as Pendulum cards. That's where these numbers come in. Now, I'm going to use Odd Eye's Raging Dragon and Odd Eye's Arc Pendulum Dragon for this example. So, if those two were to be in my Pendulum Zone, Odd Eye's Raging Dragon on the left, or Odd Eye's Arc Pendulum Dragon on the right, or vice versa, it doesn't matter, I can now special summon monsters from my hand, or face up from my extra deck, more on that in a second, whose levels are between 1 and 8. So I can special summon monsters whose levels are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I can't special summon anything that's level 1 or level 8 because I have to do the numbers between the two. Now the thing is, when I said special summon monsters from the extra deck that are face up, if you special summon if you have a Pendulum monster summoned to your side of the field and it gets destroyed, instead of going to the graveyard like how other monsters normally do, they instead go face up in the extra deck. Now the benefit to that, well, I guess it's both a benefit and a deficit. Well, no, a benefit and a bit of a hindrance. So, if you have cards that need monsters in the graveyard to activate effects, that's not going to help you because, again, they don't go to the graveyard. Well, Pendulum monsters don't go to the graveyard, they go to the extra deck. But they only go to the extra deck if they've been on the field, face up or face down, and then when they get destroyed, they go to the graveyard. Now, when you discard a Pendulum monster, that's the only time they go to the graveyard, or I think, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong on this, but if you also use them for tribute, I believe they go to the graveyard. If not, then they obviously go to the extra deck. But I do know for certain, when you discard Pendulum monsters, they go to the graveyard for certain. I know that for certain. Now, the way how you go about using Pendulum monster, well, I guess I'm going to be using Odd Eye's Venom, Odd Eye's Wing, and Odd Eye's Raging Dragon for this because those ones are the ones that are extra deck Pendulum monsters. So I mean, besides being Pendulum monsters, they function how they normally do, you know. Odd Eye's Raging Dragon as an Xyz, it still requires a material, 2 level 7 dragon type dragon monsters, you know, overlay them, and then boom, there's your Xyz summon. Odd Eye's Wing Dragon requires a tuner plus Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. So this is what I was saying before with, of needing a specific monster in those, in the quotations. So it needs a tuner plus the specific monster whose name is Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. So back to Odd Eye's Wing, you know, you would synchro summon it normally, you know, 1 tuner plus Clear Wing, because that's the specific summoning conditions, and boom, you can synchro summon it. And then Odd Eye's Venom Dragon, you know, it needs specifically 1 Starving Venom monster and 1 Odd Eyes monster. So anything with Starving Venom in its name and anything with Odd Eyes in its name. And then you just fuse the two together, and then Odd Eye's Venom Dragon. So each Pendulum monster functions as normal until it becomes a Pendulum card. Once it's put in your Spell or Trap zone for use of the Pendulum scale, which is the 1 and 8 from Odd Eye's Raging and Odd Eye's Arc Pendulum. Or yeah, was it Odd Eye's Arc Pendulum? Or yeah, no, sorry. For you guys, the cards are edited in. For me, I have to have multiple images on screen, and it is taking up my screen like nobody's business. But yeah, Odd Eye's Arc Pendulum, Odd Eye's Raging Dragon. When you put those two in your Spell and Trap zones for the Pendulum effects, you know, that becomes the Pendulum scale. Pendulum scale being numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the case of Odd Eye's Raging. You know, but also Pendulum monsters in the Pendulum zones, or I guess the Spell or Trap zones now, also get an added bonus, because not only do you get a free special summons for monsters whose levels are between the two, Pendulum monsters also have effects attached to them as well when they're in the Spell or Trap zone as Pendulums. So with Odd Eyes Raging Dragon, once per turn, if you have no cards in your other Pendulum Zone, so if Odd Eyes Raging Dragon is the only card I have in the Spell or Trap Zone as a Pendulum monster and no other monster, so, you know, I don't have Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum, I don't have Odd Eyes Wing or anything like that, it's just Odd Eyes Raging, you can place one Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum Zone. So I can basically I could search my entire deck for another Pendulum monster in my main deck. So I would either be able to use Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon or Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, and I could just place it in my other Pendulum Zone for free. Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum has, if an Odd Eyes card or cards, that's why it has the S in quotations. Yeah, if an Odd Eyes card or cards you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you could special summon one Odd Eyes monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. You can use this effect of Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon once per turn. So, again, each Pendulum monster has an effect attached to it as a Pendulum monster, so that way you don't feel like you're getting fully screwed out of a greater or lesser effect when you decide, if you know, have to put it in the Pendulum Zone, then you're trying to decide between, oh, okay, I got this one card, its effect can definitely save me in this situation, but it has a really high Pendulum scale, and that gives me more leeway to special summon using the Pendulum scale. So, you know, it's a neat little trade-off. I mean, you're not entirely losing anything by using Pendulum monsters, but again, I feel bad for people who use Pendulums, myself included, because, you know, that it does take away from the amount of Spell or Trap cards you can use, but again, I'll get into that when we get into the actual dueling itself. But yes, I believe I have covered my bases on every single type of monster card, and I've went further in depth than I did in my original video. In fact, I think, oh god, with my original video, I actually, I don't think I had a lot of, what is it? I didn't have a lot of cards really to use as an example. So, feels nice, you know, to kind of go back and actually sort of do things better how I did originally. But yeah, next video, yeah, because I believe that's everything. Yep, that's everything. So next video, I will be going over spells, and then after that, I will be going into traps. Expect those to be shorter videos because there's only so little spells and so little traps. So, I mean, monsters, since there's such a broad spectrum of monsters, I decided to keep them all in one video instead of just doing an individual video on each one. It's kind of turned out to be longer than intended, but I can work with what we got. So thank you all so much for watching. Join me in part 2 as I go over spell cards. As always, I'm HyperShadow46, and I will see you guys later. Deuces, and I will hope you have a nice day.